Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gather Real Talk. I am your host, Dalton B. That feels so cool to say. Well, welcome, everyone. I have something very exciting to talk about today. It may be exciting for you to hear, but for me to get it off my chest, it's going to be extremely difficult. Today, we're going to be talking about insecurity and what that looks like in my life. And hopefully that it encourages you or you resonate with it. But this is something that, this is going to be a hard conversation for me because I don't think I've admitted a lot of these things publicly or out loud. Maybe to a one-on-one conversation with someone, but not to an audience. So bear with me. You're going to see some real-time processing as I work through some of this stuff. But I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Gather. Kind of changed the name of the podcast a little bit after last week's episode. I wanted to add a little bit more to it and change the feel of what God's called this podcast to be. So you'll notice that we have a new logo for the podcast, and the description's changed a little bit, and the name. So it's still Gather, but there's an extension to that. Gather Real Talk. Because that's what we're going to do here. We're gonna show the messy and the imperfect and be deeply human. When I think about that, being messy and imperfect, culture tells us to not be that. And Jesus met people where they were. He didn't go seeking out the perfect and the righteous and the ones who had it all put together. If you've got it all put together and you're perfect, give me a call. I'd love to pick your brain on how you did that. The text that brought me to this is 2 Corinthians 11:30. So Paul's writing, and he says, and this is like my life verse right now. I think that this is just where I'm going to be my entire life. So 2 Corinthians 11:30 says, "If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness." If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. When I think about that, I think about culture, first of all. I like to correlate culture to what Jesus teaches, and they're complete opposites. But we do a lot of boasting about all the good things that we've done, and we show, social media, we show our best sides. This is just a very cliche topic, but we always show our best sides, and we don't want people to see what's underneath. We don't want to let people peek in to really what's going on in our lives, because that would mean that we're vulnerable and that we can be attacked and we can be hurt, and it's a self-defense mechanism. So when I read that verse, I thought about a movie scene. So for anyone who's ever seen the movie 8 Mile, and if you haven't, have you been living under a rock? You must have. But there's a scene in the movie where I think it's like the last rap battle of the scene or of the movie, and the premise of rap battles is to diss the other person, to make them look bad. But in the very last rap battle, Rabbit, the character, is played by Eminem. He decides to flip that concept on its head, and he disses himself the entire time. So instead of picking apart the other person, he chose to pick apart himself. And he won because there was no other weapon that could be formed against him. He knew where he lacked in life. He knew where he was in life and embraced that so that it couldn't be used against him to hurt him. And I've resonated with thinking about that because I went through similar experiences in my life that he went through. So, bear with me as I work through this. This is going to be really hard to talk about. But today I'm going to talk about insecurity and where that came from in my life. I didn't want to cry on this. I did not. I haven't even started yet, and I didn't want to cry. All right, so going through school, I was the funny guy. I like to make people laugh, and I didn't like people to have a bad day. So I would put myself in positions, even if it meant getting in trouble, to make someone laugh. And I was very small. I was a tiny dude, really skinny. I mean, like in middle school, I weighed, I think it was like 62 pounds. So I was really tiny. I don't know when it started, but I started to get bullied in school. I was bullied for, I guess, because I was the little guy. I was an easy target. I was different. I was a little weirdo because I didn't mind being embarrassed. I didn't mind, and I still don't to this day. I don't mind being embarrassed. I don't mind making someone laugh at the expense of myself. But there was something about that was threatening to other people that they decided to pick on me. So as I was getting picked on for being small, the bullying became physical. There were times where I was thrown against walls. There were times where my head was slammed against a desk. There were times, I was knocked out unconscious from that. And then people didn't step in and do anything. They just watched, or they watched and laughed. So that kind of makes you start to feel isolated. It started to make me feel alone, like that I realized that no one, if you get your head slammed down on a desk in a room full of at least 30 people and no one does anything but laugh, you have no other option but to think that you're alone, that no one's going to help you. So inside, over time, as things like this happen, and this was always done by people who were either bigger than me or older than me, or had some sort of advantage or vantage point over me. So over time, I started to develop insecurities about myself. I started to actually believe the things that people were saying about me. I started to actually believe the things that people were picking on me for and physically assaulting me for, that I started developing insecurities and a lack of confidence in those areas of my life. I felt like I wasn't good enough. So I had to overcompensate for things. And then I think the worst side effect of it all was was people pleasing. I developed a people pleasing personality for safety. I started wearing, I think I talked about this. I think I talked about this on the last podcast, but I started putting on costumes based on an environment that I was in to keep myself safe. So I would match the environment, or I would match the group of people, or I would match the friends that I was around to keep myself safe. So whatever they were or whatever they were doing, I did as well, because I couldn't be bullied or picked on for those things, because they were doing them too, right? So I really started to lose myself due to that. I started to be and make choices that I look back on now that I would have never made. They were mistakes, yes, obviously. I was growing up and I was being a kid, and I was just making poor choices, but those choices were based on safety and security. I didn't feel safe in any part of my life. There was nowhere that I could go that I felt safe and secure. So I started going to environments that were, this doesn't even sound logical, that now that I'm about to say this, I didn't feel safe, so I started putting myself in dangerous situations. Make it make sense. I'll wait. I didn't feel safe in my life, so I started putting myself in dangerous situations. I think I did that because danger meant intimidation. If I was dangerous, then people wouldn't bother me. People wouldn't pick on me because I was the dangerous one, or I was. Ultimately, look. So I became the bully. I learned behaviors that kept the weight of being picked on, and I put it on other people. I wanted to be the one that wasn't being picked on, so I started picking on others. I started going after the weak. I started going after the vulnerable. And as I was doing it, I knew it was wrong. But I was safe. I felt safe. And then I was being accepted by groups, by the groups that were originally bullying me. So it was hitting my reward system. I was like, oh, I'm safe. They like this, and they leave me alone. So I'm gonna keep doing this. So the more I did it, the deeper I went into those worlds, those groups of people, and I started hanging around people that didn't encourage the best behavior. But I was so far in that it was too late at that point. I couldn't go back. So the decisions that came with, groups of people like that, drugs and violence and stealing. I mean, if you can think it happened. So now when I think about my life, I mean, because now, so you're talking about you're probably thinking 10 years of my life I was living in insecurity. Over time I developed insecurity because now I was in these groups that were bullying me, and then they found ways. Then they attacked my insecurities, or not my insecurities. They attacked and started bullying me inside the group that I was trying to get away from. So now I'm double confused, right? So I had to become even more dangerous, even more bullying, even more violent, even more of a loudmouth, even more drugs, even more. Everything was even more to amplify, to puff myself up, to become bigger, and that has now carried over into my life today. Not the bullying and all that, but so now my insecurities look like. For instance, if I'm at an event and people aren't speaking to me, that normally would, if they're going and talking to other people. You should say we're at a function of, say, 40 people, right? And usually people talk to me, but today they're talking to other people and only just saying words and passing to me. That attacks my insecurity. I feel like a few things. A, they're mad at me, and they're not. I know that, but my brain believes I've done something to this person. They're mad at me. B, that they think something about me, or they've found something out about me that I've made up in my mind, or it triggers the safety. So they're not speaking to me. I don't feel safe because they feel a certain way about me. So then I start like overcompensating my anxiety and start like interjecting myself into, like, it's so weird, dude. I'll like interject myself into like their conversation to find out. I cannot even believe I'm admitting this out loud, but hey, that's what this show is. That's what we're here to do. I will like interject myself into their conversation to find out how they feel about me, or if they're mad about me, or so that I don't feel like an outsider. That's what it is. I don't want to feel alone, because alone means not secure. I wouldn't say that I have like a lack of confidence. I think I'm a very confident person, but when things like that happen or come up, it starts making me feel less confident. So I guess I don't have as much confidence as I think. I don't have confidence until I have a reason not to be. I'm like laying down right now. I need to sit up because I'm getting into this now. So it wasn't until, when I was going to do this episode, this actually wasn't the original topic. But through prayer, I realized that I needed to talk about this. I needed to talk about these things that they plague me. I use the word plague because it affects my daily life. It affects my daily decisions. It affects how I interact with people. I'm very insecure about other people, what they think about me, because of safety. I don't want to get hurt. And I mean, like, when I say hurt, emotionally hurt, yes. But I feel like people will physically hurt me if they're mad at me, or if I show any sort of weakness or vulnerability, that people are gonna take advantage of it, because that's what's happened in my life, right? That's what happened in school. That's what happened in several areas of my life. That there was words used against me. There was hands put on me. There was shame friend groups would talk about me behind my back. So I also deal with that. I also deal with paranoia that if those, like, say, back to that group of 30, 40, the room of 30, 40 people, if they're not talking to me, they're talking about me. Oh man, that's gross. That's a gross way to think. It's also a very self-absorbed way to think. That ultimately puts me at the center of the universe. It puts importance on me like a false importance. And I don't think that I'm like intentionally doing that. I don't think I'm intentionally trying to think that I'm the most important. But that's ultimately what that thought process is if people aren't talking to me, they're talking about me. So all is about me, but it's doing it because of safety. But that's what is ultimately happening. So once I turned my life over to Jesus, things started to shift. So I still deal with it, but there was like a shift in my life where I was starting to be shown why. Like right now in this instance, or right now on this show, for instance, these are the things that I'm being shown and that I'm being led through and guided through graciously. Because before, I would never admit this. I would just create a behavior to cover this insecurity up. I would create behavior so that you couldn't find out about it. So I would put on several layers of clothes, right? Several layers of a costume that you would have to pick through to finally get there. Now, through my walk with Christ, I'm not doing that. It's one layer of clothing that I'm trying to get to, that you maybe not even having a layer of clothing, maybe just literally putting it all out there and owning it. Now, not living in it. I obviously want to heal it because it's not something that I want to. It's not something that I want to have in my garden. This is not a fruit that I want to have in my garden. This is poison. I wouldn't feed this to other people. I wouldn't feed this to myself because it would kill you. So I need to pick the weeds out of my garden. And the weeds that I'm going to pick out are the ones that don't bear fruit. Insecurity does not bear fruit. Insecurity is a thorn. Several thorns that are growing in my garden that are wrapping around my good fruit. My good fruit cannot come out of the ground or cannot be plucked for other people if these thorny weeds are in it. So I'm embracing it and healing through it. And God is taking me on a journey through that. You all are witnessing real time this healing process. I mean, the first step to fixing it and being better is putting it in the light. If I leave it in the darkness, it will never see light. And if it never sees light, then I'll never see it. It's in the dark. It's growing mold. So I had a thought earlier this week. I wrote it down, and it obviously came from the Holy Spirit, but it says, you can't be set free from something if you're letting it keep you prisoner. You can't be set free from something if you're still letting it keep you prisoner. The door is open. In Jesus, the door is open. You just walk out and walk into his arms. But for insecurity, for me, the door is open, but I'm staying in my prison cage. So today is a day where I am walking out of the door and I'm leaving these insecurities in the prison. Now, today isn't going to be the day that I walk away from it all, obviously, because this has been a trained behavior, but I'm going to put it in Jesus's hands to heal. I'm going to put it in his hands to work with and show his glory. It's ultimately for his glory. And I just have to stay obedient. I have to get on this microphone and talk to you lovely people about what I'm going through. And I want to encourage you all to do the same thing. I want you to either start walking this thing out, this ATV lifestyle, authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. I want you to start walking it out and truly embracing your vulnerabilities so that you can get them out of the darkness, get them out of your garden, put them in the light, and let's do some work. So either you can do it alone, you can join our Discord server and get in here with the rest of us and let's figure this out. Let's work through it together. Or I want you all to join this show. Come on as a guest. If whatever it is that you're going through or that you want to talk about or you want to get off your chest or you want to encourage someone else on how you worked through something, I would love to have you as a guest. So first of all, I want to thank you all for joining me today. This was healing for me to say this stuff publicly. I thank you. And obviously there's so much more to the story. But I don't want to give it all to you in, one episode. Then I wouldn't have anything to talk about with you guys. So we're going to unpack this a little more. We're going to unpack some other things about what I'm going through in my life or what I've been through. But I would love to hear about what you guys are going through and what your lives look like and what you're struggling with. So if you haven't joined the Gather Discord server, the link is in the show notes right below. I truly encourage you to join our community. Download the Discord app and click the link below to join and get plugged in with someone who's like you. Get plugged in with someone who may have success in something or can provide encouragement. Get in here and do a Bible study. Get in here and meet somebody. Get in here and make friends. Gather is a place where we get together. It's a digital community where we get together and we just do life together. I just want to thank you guys so much for your time today. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any advice, I'd love to hear it. If you have any encouragement, I'd love to hear it. So remember, here at Gather, embrace your whole self, the messy, the imperfect, and the deeply human. Guys, I love you, and I will see you next time.